Okay. uh, Nistowa ka natuika nasuyaki tanikoa shiksikaki. Atsimokan. We'll start with the prayer. I'm not going to use this, but this is a prayer that our schools use, hey? And for me, I need that. I always pray because I always ask my Gasinuks to help me, hey? So do a quick prayer. Yugasi natusi kipitaki kimson. Spomokinan, Gimukinan. Gimisad sum kitapix, matapix, nitukuix. Gimokit. Takti puisek. Skunatapsi. Ayugasi, Kamutani, Nistowatamani, Napusinon. Hey. Thank you. My introduction is in there more, so I just wanted to share some of the first slides. So for me, my business is called Sikotani Gimapi, and Nitanikoa, like I just said. My mother Nistowa, she gave me this this name for my company, Nam Gasix. My grandmother, my late grandmother, was Sikotan. I was a very generous and kind person who taught me about the sacredness of Niitsitapi through stories and legends and the practice of Ikimapis. And again, Sikotan Ikimapi story. So Sikotan told me stories and practices of our ancestors. I felt a deep sense of love and belonging. Going back and forth. And safety and pride in our Gipetapiusinon, which is part of who we are. Sikotan taught what she knew, understood, and had learned from her ancestors. My grandmother's teachings helped me survive my experiences of trauma of the Indian residential school, the impacts of the residential school syndrome, and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I was part of the Indian residential school, and she was the effects of her lifetime that continued to this day. So the trauma plagued many generations. The impacts of genocide and colonization has disturbed our ways of life, but our sacredness continues. This venue brings me to what I have learned and how to help heal the impacts of the Indian residential schools and the survivors and all the several generations that it has affected. I want to pass on my grandmother's wisdom, my ancestors' knowledge, and eminent scholars' teachings. I want to be a catalyst for healing by understanding the effects and trauma of the past, that healing and forgiveness are part of decolonization using Niitsitapi ways of knowing. So, just to introduce myself, okay, so who I am, who am I? Taka Nistowa, Ekanaki Mikesto. When I transferred my baby name to my granddaughter, my mom gave me her grandmother's name, Ekanaki, closest to English, meaning sacred lightning woman. And again, it's Natuyika Nasuyaki too. When I go into ceremony and help with our Akukskan, that's what I use. So Mikesto is my great grandfather Frank Red Crow's, but at birth he was a Mikyu. He was adopted by his father, Chief Red Crow. His name meaning ochre on a crow. And I changed my name because it's there's so much racism, so much. When I used Red Crow, I felt people would call us names, especially when I was little. There's very lot of racism. After the residential school closed, we moved to the city, and we were really discriminated because of our last name was Red Crow. And so I changed it to Megesto, which means ochre on a crow. So people don't know what it means. So when I let them know what it means, I don't say Red Crow. I just say what it means in our language, which is ochre on a crow, which is more profound for our people. So I want to share some pictures here. First time I've seen it really big. So as you can see, some of these pictures, this is me, and this is my dog Brownie, and that's my grandma Sikodan. And then up there is, I'm an identical twin, by the way. So this is me and my sister down there. We're the ones with the haircuts. That's how they cut our hair, residential school. So this was during the summer. And that's my brothers and siblings. And this picture here is Sikodan too, when we were babies. And again, my mom up there too. And that far picture there with that house, that's where we lived, in a 2-room shack. And there was like 15 of us stayed there. My one brother would say, yeah, he'd just go in and he'd see a bunch of those swings. They'd have swings all over because we were, a lot of babies. And they're always on the swings. And then down here, this is a picture when we're grade 2. We went to a provincial school. We didn't go to school at the residential school. We went to a provincial school. So those 2 pictures there on the ends, and then these 2. Guess which one's me? That's me on that side. Okay. So we looked a lot alike. My great-grandmother gave us the name Niitsitapi. And she, again, our stories to our names are so powerful. And she came, I don't have a picture on here, but I'll share it. Her name is Niitsitapi. She went on a horse and wagon when we were born from Ghana to Siksika, just to see us. And she gave us that name. Her plan was to take us, bring us home with her, and she wanted to raise us. But my mom's dad said no, didn't want us to be raised there. So, and one thing about this picture, there's no pictures of us in residential school here. I don't have any pictures that we were in residential school. And that's something that I don't know. Oh, come they never did, eh? But this is, again, we need to know who we are. And again, this is the lady that named us, this one at the end here, Niitsitapi. She died when she was 107. But she gave us the name Niitsitapi. And then we have up here is, so this is my dad's side. My dad, again, went to residential school, and his parents were in residential school. But down here, these, I don't believe they went to residential school. And my dad, he drank a lot, had a lot of issues. He passed away early because of that. This is my mom's generations here. So my mom is up there, Nistowa, and then this is my grandma, Sikodan, and she was in residential school. 19, I think this one was in 1912-ish. So this was when the residential school, early residential schools they had, and my grandma was in there. And this is my grandmother's, that's Sikodan's mother. Her name is Ekanaki. So that's where I get my name. And then this is her dad. His name is William Mayfield, but his Siksika name is Bukaponista. Bukaponista, a small weasel. Weasel child. So it's a child. And then that's my mom's dad over here. His name was Jack, or Mitzi, his other name. That's my mom. So for me, a lot of this connects me to who we are. We always need to know who we are. And that helps us understand our identity. Hey? And even the stories of our names. Because our names were given to us out of love. You know, Again, this one here was put together by, his name was Mervyn Wolflake, and he was teaching a Bachelor of Education in the Niitsitapi Ways of Knowing at our Ulsan Community College. And he shared this with my sister, my twin sister, so she shared it with me. So when we're given things like this or shared, we need to let people know where we got them from. Because we want to give them, it's just like when we have our ceremonies and that, we always want to give back, okay, where did you learn that? Who gave you that teaching, you know? Who transferred that knowledge? So in here, I use this for when I teach, when I have groups, I'll get them to do this first, and then they could see the impacts of residential school, but they can also see their legacy of who they are, and it really helps them, gives that sense of belonging, right? And it's different than having that colonized way, hey, where it's all boxes and circles and crosses and X's, you know. This is more of a circular one. And this is just a picture of, this is the Old Sun Residential School, and that's when I was there. I was there from 1969 to 1971. I was in there. It's an older picture, and this is where also my mom went. She went there for 8 years. And just some pictures I found online, and you know, I think when I went there, it wasn't. It was still really bad, but it wasn't really where we still. Well, nobody seemed to talk the language, right? Still, even though I think we could have, but it was never pushed even, right? And I think that's where, for me, I have to tell the story when I was, one of the first days I was there, they had a common room where there was the kitchen, or the dining room. So all the boys would march in on one side, and then the girls on this side. I was only 6 years old, and I couldn't comprehend what they were doing, but what happened was I seen my older brother, and I was so happy to see him. I was waving at him, and next thing you know, I just literally see stars, and I just heard, and we called them matrons, I don't know why, but she just said, "You dirty little girl, what are you doing? I just want to have sex with him, you know?" I was like, "What?" And that was my brother. So they showed you very young about your sexuality. And I think that's where the impacts of our parenting, you know, really affect us. Excuse me. So as a small voice whispered, they found us. You are not forgotten. This impacted a lot of our people. When they found those kids, it impacted their, thank you. It impacted a lot of their self, and I'll talk more about it here. My mom drew a picture. It's on my computer about, for her, how it impacted her too, right? Because they had people they didn't know what happened to them too, right? And it was in the time when COVID was happening, and you couldn't even leave, eh? And I think this is what was one of the huge impacts. Excuse me, I'm gonna get my book out here quick. It was one of the huge impacts of people that went through residential school, because you're isolated. Like for me, I couldn't believe when I went through COVID, it was traumatizing for me. I was teaching, and I couldn't go back the next year. It was so hard. It was so hard. And I was thinking, okay, scared, like, oh no, who's going to give it to me? I don't want to touch, or, don't want to hug. So that was the scary part of COVID. And the people that went through residential school was just as bad. It just really impacted them too, in a different way too, of that isolation. So, from individual trauma to intergenerational trauma, like that doctor talked about earlier today, right? The residential school system in Canada caused emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, leaving lasting mental health issues and high suicidal rates among Indigenous communities. It also failed to teach healthy parent skills, results in high rates of family violence, and Indigenous children are overrepresented in the care of child welfare authorities. Substance abuse is also significantly high, which is a high health concern. I mean, so, and this is part of, like, for us, it's really made that ripple effect and that impact for our people in a huge way. So these are the impacts of residential school syndrome. So Indian residential school syndrome. There's a website on this, or if you just go on Google, just let them know you want to know about the residential school syndrome survivors, Indian residential school syndrome. So when those kids, after years of being forced to behave, speak, and think like European Canadians, did return to their families and communities as young adults, they frequently did not fit in. Their connection with their culture was either damaged or lost altogether. Same with their language, their connection with the land, with oral traditions, because they have not experienced paternal love or nurturing. They in turn did not know how to love or nurture their own children because they had suffered abuse and trauma. Many learned to abuse others in order to survive. And that's how, I was at this one conference where there's about residential school, and this guy stands up and he talks, and he said, you know what, we have to thank those colonizers for making our people pedophiles. Because he said, we have to thank these colonizers for making a lot of our people pedophiles. Because that's what they did, how much sexual abuse they did, And the thing for that, he said that because, it's something huge. People don't talk about it, just like sexuality, because it's a taboo. So Indian residential school syndrome, we're continuing. So when approximately over 150,000 children experience trauma, physical and emotional abuse, shame, neglect, feelings of abandonment, neither they nor their parents understood why the children were being taken, marginalized from their community and society. And racism and all of that is unresolved. Those experiences and emotions are internalized. Those internalized emotions manifested as depression, anxiety, addictions, suicidal inclinations, rage, and mental illnesses. This is residential school syndrome. Again, and then this is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Who do you know, who are one of the groups that have PTSD?
Military.
Huge, right?
Yeah, huge.
And complex just means a long period of time.
And victims of domestic violence all have post-traumatic stress.
Kids in care. Kids in care, and people that were in jail. Those are people that have that huge complex post-traumatic stress, and then of course residential school survivors. So this is a serious mental illness, mental health condition that can take some time to treat, and for many people it's a lifelong condition. However, a combination of therapy and medication can help you manage your symptoms and significantly improve your quality of life. So some of the symptoms of a complex post-traumatic stress disorder: feelings of worthlessness, shame and guilt, problems controlling your emotions, finding it hard to feel connected with other people, relationship problems like having trouble keeping friends and partners. And with this, it's for me, when I first started working on myself, for 10 years I was on, it's called Paxil. And I told the doctor, I want the lowest dose because I don't want to be on this. But I was on it for 10 years. Then I started weaning myself off it because my goal was not to be on anything. I didn't want to be on anything. And so I'm not. I'll have that, once in a while I'll take Advil or Tylenol, but, and when COVID came, I had to take those cold taps and that. But I don't take it. I always use our ways of knowing, our healing through our language and so forth. And that's what I really liked about this school. When COVID was here, they did a lot of online classes. And I was there because it helped me, especially hearing the stories, hearing the language. And it was so awesome when they had that, we could go online and listen. Because we always need that, right? That connection. So that's what really, one of the things that helped me too. So when we look at what are some of the symptoms, again we're going to this. So life is unpredictable. Unfortunately for many of us, that means that grief and trauma can arise at any time. When a person is exposed to danger, violence, illness, or the threat of injury, they can potentially carry that trauma with them for years to come. So these are just some of the symptoms. And I wrote them down because I always forget. Just kidding. Well, I'm not going to go through them all. So intrusive thoughts. What are the things do you think is intrusive thoughts?
Negative thoughts.
Oh, huge. Negative thoughts, yeah.
Things that just come suddenly that are wrong.
Yeah, worrying up. So these are some of them. Is hurting children or babies. That's intrusive thoughts. You're not doing it, but you think it, right? Mm-hmm. Doing something violent or illegal. Cause doubt. Unexpected reminders about painful past events. Worried about catching germs like the COVID. I couldn't stay in my job because I was so scared to get COVID. I was so freaked out, but I didn't want to be alone. But I was isolated too. But that's another one, concerned about doing something embarrassing. Intrusive sexual thoughts. Because you're, especially if you've been, sexually abused so bad, you're either oversexed or you don't want no one to touch you. And I have a sister like that. She passed away. She had a lot of mental illnesses. She was in residential school for 5 years. And I'd go to give her a hug, and she wouldn't. She'd just go like this to me, tap her fingers on me. She didn't want to touch me, And that's just how she is. She didn't want she didn't want people around her. And then the other one, nightmares. I was going through a lot of nightmares. I still do, but for me, I have to change. I'll tell you more that what I do when I start working on my how I deal with things, right? But with nightmares, it's a huge thing with people. And I remember going through. I had to do a statement when I was going through my residential school. I forget what it's called. But what happened was I kept having this same nightmare, and it just impacted me. And I would wake up sweating, and I'd be screaming. And I went to one of our elders, our Gasinooks, that was part of the Mutugigs, the Women's Buffalo Society, and she was a grandmother, and I told her about that. And she said, you know, what happened is when this happened to you, this trauma, you were just it was in the dark, so it was dark. So you didn't see your udaki. And I told her, my udaki? I said, yeah. So what happens is, when you go through trauma, you lose your udaki. You don't see it anymore. And our udaki is our shadow. For our people, those are our ancestors. Our udaki is our ancestors. And she said, you have to always talk to them. You have to always pray for them, pray with them, to be with you, like I did today, but also praying, and then, saying, okay, being nice to them, saying hello, I love you, things like that, to our udaki. So that helped me a lot when I was going through my nightmares. And again, avoiding reminders, memory loss. You try and not remember, you don't remember things. But then you get triggers, right? So negative thoughts about yourself and the world, self-isolation, feeling distant, anger and irritability, reduced interest in favorite activities, hypervigilance. Again, that's another one. So you're always checking your surroundings, making sure that's safe. And some people would go on, some will go to the side because they don't want, somebody to jump you. I guess that's what happens with residential school. You have to really watch yourself, especially when you're sleeping. Easily startled, or you jump, like somebody just went back to you and went, hey, you just jump like crazy. You over jump. I don't know if that means it. You monstered the situation, I think you could say that. So you get, and then you even scream at things that are, like, one story about my grandkids. I love my grandkids, but I can't have them long. And I get triggered by screams. I taught my grandkids to call when they hear me screaming or something. They'll tell me "Gasi," mopit, or how it is. I'll be yelling at them just for a little thing, and then they'll tell me "Gasi." How did they say that word? They'll say "Gasi." What is it? Now my mind just went blank. But they'll turn around and they'll use a Siksika word. Or they'll say, Gashi, yeah, man. I taught them to do that because for me, I'm able to hear those words in a kind way. I don't know if you understand that. But one of our classes, this lady, when I was doing my Bachelor of Social Work, she told us a story about how she was able to, she was at her home. She had just broken up with her man, and she had like 5 kids. And she was screaming and yelling at them. Just they were hungry. She was hungover, and she was yelling and getting mad at them. But her dad was standing at the door, and her dad came in, and he told his daughter. He said, I don't want you to yell at my grandkids. If you're going to yell at them, you yell at them in our language, because there's no words in our language to get mad at kids. That's how powerful our words are. So for me, that's what I do as I start using words for them. And then they'll use the words to help me, because they know when I get into that situation. But yeah, so these are more of them. Exaggerating startle responses. And I see that with a lot of the ones that are older than me. Like even my mom, when she gets into something, she just jumps, or she'll cry profusely, you know. And it's like, oh, for me, I look at, why are you crying? But it's that, yeah. And then but sometimes she'll just like really laugh out loud, and we're like, but those are like, you know, things like startling, you know, there are responses that you would think, oh, where did that come from? But those are things like, even she'd be crying and then she'll start laughing, you know. And those are just some of the things that, you know, different things that happen, right? Even different circumstances. So how can I handle, so we were talking about earlier, so for myself, these are the things that I've done. There's more, right? So listening to our stories in our language. So when I sleep, there's a lot of video stories now you can hear online, on YouTube, and I'll listen to them while I fall asleep. Because I learned that when I was young with my grandmother, Sikutan, she would tell us napi stories to fall asleep, right? Going to ceremonies and talking to our traditional Gashinoks, some medicine people, ceremonies, get my face painted. I do vows, you know, just to help. And then Atimohkan, which is very powerful. Mindfulness. I go for walks. That helps me too. I go and, you know, I've been doing that now, hugging a tree. Let's go and hug it, because that energy, hey? That reciprocity of that energy that's given to you. Through the tree, you're getting your energy too, hey? So continuing to learning from our knowledge keepers, sharing my story, sharing our ways of knowing, and sharing the history of our people. Traditional dancing, I'm a traditional dancer, so that helps me too. Just listening to the music, singing our language, singing in our language. We have a lot of lullabies. You know, with my grandkids, I'll sing to them. Like I have so many, and they all have Sixka names. They all know their names. They have the stories, and I'll sing with them. Because all of our songs, you know, like I sing to my guy, I say Gikakumem, Gikakumem, and I'll call all their names, Gikakumem, and they just love that. So that before they go to bed, they sing it. We've got our song, got to sing our song, and they'll start singing it. And you know what Gikakumem means, eh? Yeah, it's that ultimate love. Well, closest to English. It's that love that you have it here, right? With this Western therapy, what I do is I do mindfulness meditation. Do you guys know Dr. Yellowbird? Ever hear of him? He's a social worker. He's a doctor in social work. No, he's from the States. But he's a professor at Manitoba University.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, you guys if you get check him out. This is YouTube. He talks about mindfulness and how that connects with our ways. Because we have to be mindful when we're in our ceremonies, right? We have to sit there and we have to listen and we have to feel that energy when they're doing the ceremonies. It's very powerful. Deep breathing, massages, you know, listening to audiobooks. When I came up here, I listened to 2 audiobooks. Well, 1.5. And these are books I get on Amazon, and they're just more books that I want to read. I'm not a colonizer, but, you know, my sister gives me a couple books. One is on Prince Harry, his documentary. I don't want to hear it. I didn't tell her that. I just put it away. I'm not going to read it. I'm not interested in that stuff. EMDR, that's another therapy. I don't know if you ever heard of that. And it's a really good one for people that have gone through huge trauma, because it's a clicking. It's a clicking. And when you walk, it's a good one for walking, because you're already doing that EMDR. So what it does is you're changing that, and it's talking positive. When you're doing that, you're saying, I'm going to have a beautiful day today. I'm going to have a beautiful day. You know, just keep saying that, and you will. Therapy. I've been in therapy. I go both ways, you know, through the traditional and through I'm not going to go with both ways, but you know what I mean. White therapy and and our traditional ways. So, and I'm a lifelong learner. I keep going to doing stuff all the time. And because I do that, for me, I don't really see this as, I see it more of me helping me heal. I don't know if I get younger in these pictures, but just kidding. That's me when I got my BS, Bachelor of Social Work. And that's me when I got my Master's in Education. And then I went and got my Bachelor's of Education. And that's my business. That's my grandma, Sikutan. And this is one of my knowledge keepers. Her name is Samantha. Yeah.
Is she here?
Her husband's here.
Oh, okay.
And she's, her and her husband, I help them. I tell them, oh, you're my knowledge keepers. And they say, no, you're my gosh. You know, we go both ways. But I just said, you know what, I do what I can to transfer that teaching. And my mentor for me was Dr. Betty Basted. She passed away recently. But she taught me a lot. Hey? So, and then right now we finished my Indigenous Masters of Social Work. And that really helped me. And it continues to help me in my journey to who I am, to who we are. And I'm an entrepreneur. And they actually gave me awards for that. I was like, for me, these accomplishments. I told my sister, I'm just really shy. I said, you deserve it. I said, okay. So I got, where I went and did my diploma in social work, they gave me a award for Alumni Achievement Award. So that's me, and then there was 3 other guys. And then the Queen Elizabeth Platinum. That was I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go because for me, I see them as the colonizer. But my sister said, go. They're actually acknowledging you. And what they acknowledged me is walking in 2 worlds. Ganaki blends formal education with ancestral teachings, ceremonies, and storytelling to help others find their healing and identity. So that helped me. And my goal is when I get my, even now, working towards helping our people get out of this rut. That's my goal. And I do my best to do what I can to help our people. Because, we didn't deserve this. We don't deserve what we went through, right? And again, these are my teachings. As you can see, he's here today. He's not as small as he is. Jared, that's him and his wife. And Herman is the middle one. He's our elder too. And then here is Makui. And then another, these are all my elders, my knowledge keepers. And then my great-grandma, Niitsitapi.
Was she from Siksika?
Who was that?
Your great-grandma?
She's Gena.
Okay,
Gena.
yeah, she looks familiar.
Yeah, she's on those books.
Yeah, is she originally a Blackwater?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
Yeah.
Mary Paula Blackwater.
Mm-hmm.
She's my inspiration too, because we'd go visit her, and all she spoke was the language. And she just, for me, I found her, she's very, our language is very soothing, but it's also patience. I hear some of the young ones, not here, but in the some of them, they really talk fast. Whoa. And she said, well, we don't talk like that. We talk slow. Okay, really slow and very caring. That's how our words are, right? There was none of this fast talk in those days. And then my grandkids, they're all connected. I'm very proud of them. But they always want to know. They're always wanting to know the language. And we go to visit the sacred sites. So we go visit them all, and we do stories there. And we're helping right now with children's services. They're getting us to go and bring these kids. They don't know who they are. They're finding out who they are, going to visit them. And then, oops. And then here, just some pictures from online. And I like this picture here. Hey, the ground on which we stand is sacred ground. It is the blood of our ancestors. I love that one. It's so good. And then like Napi stories. I like using that. And then with the ceremonies and sweet grass. So for me, this is what I've been learning and using ontological responsibilities in all my education. Isn't that wild? And these are all of them, spiritual, Atsimukhgani, Gimapisinix, and so forth. So these are all them. And these are just pictures. Be strong. You never know who you are inspiring. Your grandmother's prayers are still protecting you. And strength does not come from winning your struggles. Develop your strengths when you go through hardships and decide not to surrender. That is strength. And I was like this one here. Real cute, eh? If you don't teach me my culture, I don't know who I am. I think that's so cute. Thank you. Niitsitapi. I like this class. Short and sweet. Any questions?
I guess I have a couple. I guess, ceremony.
Yes.
My son, my middle son, I have 3 sons, and my middle son was a soldier, was a warrior, and he served in Baghdad and Afghanistan, and he came home, post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury. He started self-medicating, alcohol and drugs, and then one day my husband is a putzus to a bundle, and so we told him, let's do something. And so Martin Eaglechild, a friend of ours, actually, I'm going to digress right quickly. As Martin Eaglechild said, I'm taking you for my brother and my sister. And I looked at my husband, I said, ooh, that's incest, right?
So that's your auntie.
I really got a bad sense of humor, man. Anyways,
he's very funny.
but we did a ceremony. We did a cleansing ceremony at my house, or a ceremony, I should say. Began to cleanse, but then the other one was to call his pieces back, because he was over across. He was in places that he lost a lot of friends.
Yes.
He came back. He was holding those people. We did it, and he was to heal, and he says first, the beginning of healing is to call this person together, to make this person a whole person again.
Yeah.
And our experiences, our shared experiences of being in boarding school or residential school, was there any kind of, you're a ceremonial person, any kind of ceremony that would heal that, like bring you whole again so that you can start to heal?
Oh yeah, like the story you just said, like the grandmother was mentioned to you, we have to call our utaki. That's our shadow, our spirit. But we also have to show it a lot of love, because those are our ancestors, right? This one lady I know, she's actually in another class, but she was telling us a story about how her son was way out there, out in Afghanistan, came back going through a lot of trauma. But, I remember when I was little, we'd go somewhere and my grandma would say, go. She would be there, before we left someplace, she'd say, Kake, kitach kayo pinan. And she'd call our names. She said, we never leave, we don't leave. And that's like our shadow. We're leaving it there. We're not supposed to leave we always had, like when I left Cuts, I didn't want to leave my shadow there. Cutsbank, we stayed in this hotel, and I call it. And then even when I go with my grandkids somewhere, we call it. And they call her, say, gosh, we've got to call ourselves. And they'll say, kitach kayo pinan. And they'll call their names. So, yeah.
So to help the healing, to help the healing, and I know we can't hide it. We cannot hide it. We experienced it. We can't hide it. But we can accept and heal it. Is there a ceremony? And I'm speaking from a women's perspective, that we as women, because we carry a lot of baggage anyway, we carry responsibility, we carry really the survival of our tribes, our families.
Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility on our shoulders as women. Yeah. Is there something that we can do that is already there in ceremony or practice or whatever to bring that together so we heal, we accept, and we go forward and leave it there. Just leave it.
Part of mindfulness, right? One thing that I do every day for myself in the morning, when I'm at home, I smudge, and but I carry utaki, my utaki, but I also call it utaki. But this is my iniskim that was transferred to me. It's like my baby. That's helping me. That helps me through my journey. But also to the teachings of it has helped me. When I smudge it. But I think when we learn to focus on our ways, the language, Gimab is praying. Like Francine is we're doing our IMSW together. And the stories, we need the stories too. Tell those stories. If we keep telling our story, we'll be able to move forward. But if we don't, we keep them here. It's like that doctor said, we stuff it more. Yeah. But we need to open up, and we need to always pray. And those are powerful for us. And our ceremonies, I vow, at our Ukakskin, I vow every year, and I believe in that. And that's what helps me too, because that's my gasinuks. I always tell my one of the first times I went to the Akukskan, they were dancing. It wasn't a big group in Siksika, but when they were dancing, and I looked, and I was feeling for me that's my happy place, right? And I looked out there when they were dancing, dancing around the. And I seen so many. There's only a little, but there were so many dancing. Right here, it just hit me here, because I seen my grandma. So for me, those are things that help me. Is just continue our ways. The language is huge. The stories, going to our ceremonies, going to our sacred sites, just feeling that energy there. It's a lot of energy, and it's powerful. And we go there, even bring in some of these people that are going through a lot, going there for the first time, they feel that energy. And they just cry. They feel it, because they feel them.
I always say, and I carried a bill in the Senate, the Montana State Senate, and it was SJ6, which was to have a day of acknowledgement, recognition that the boarding school system in the United States here, the Indian boarding school system was a traumatic event for Indian people. And so I had asked the U.S. government to have a day of remembrance for those that died, for those that survived, and then their descendants, because just like the professor said this morning, was we carry those with us. We carry that strain with us. And so I carried that. And so during my testimony towards that, I used my own testimony of being a boarding school person and attending boarding school, and that I come from a long line of women that were institutionalized. Myself, my mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother. My great-great-grandmother was still a free-roaming Indian, so it started with my great-grandmother who went to Fort Shaw in industrial school, which is out here. There's still a graveyard there. All these little children that died there. My grandmother went to Holy Family Mission. There's a graveyard out there. And my grandfather went to, you guys probably pass it all the time, and go this way on Hudson Bay Divide Road, 89 right on here, bro. There's Willow Creek. There's a graveyard there. Cut Bank Boarding School is one my mother and I went to. Cut Bank Creek Boarding School. It's a DIA boarding school here in Minneapolis. And so there has to be graveyards there. They're unmarked, you know. But so when he was talking this morning, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, yes, you know, all of that, all of these women in my line went through. Well, of course, my grandfather's too, but
Yeah.
I speak from the woman's voice.
Yeah.
And you know, when my husband and I started having children, we have 3 sons, and I realized right away that the way I was brought up, the way my mother was brought up, the way my grandmother was brought up, discipline was swift and brutal. I grew up that way. You know, my mother would just never crossed her.
There was a learned behavior from.
Yeah, and it was dangerous to live in my household. Yeah. And so I knew that, and I changed that.
Yeah.
And we're talking trauma here, we're talking boarding school or residential school, and that our shared experiences, and their shared experiences like your mother, your grandmother, pictures up there. Well, I have the same story. You know, I have the same story.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.